Hey, I'm Rob from JestaThaRogue.com, and over the last 6 months, from about October to March, I like nothing more than to get a hot chocolate, get under my weighted blanket, and settle down to a good video game. But I am cool, I promise. Also, where possible, I like to mute a game when playing on PC and watch TV on the other monitor. Something like Monster Train or Football Manager, something where I don't need to hear the game and it doesn't need 100% of my attention span. Digital board games are good for this, but for the most part, some of the heavier Euros, especially if you don't know the game that well, require your full attention. So here are the top 10 digital board games on Steam. Yes, this is not a subjective list, this is according to Steam ratings. If this was my list, my favourite Steam board game, Small World, would be on there. Alas, it is not.
Number 10.
As the old saying goes, never judge a board game by its cover, or something like that. And this game leads the way in the ugly cover great game ratings. Concordia is a resource management game where players play cards to buy and sell resources, move around the Mediterranean, build buildings and buy new cards. The cards themselves not only allow you to take these actions to do all that, but also each comes with endgame scoring at the bottom, which means you need to build a hand that's useful now and will hopefully be profitable later. Concordia is rated 8.1 on Board Game Geek, with players high on the elegant gameplay but down on the dry, dull theme. The digital version was released in 2021 and is faithful to the board game, reflecting the mechanisms with decent graphical elements and clear iconography. Concordia Digital Edition has 122 very positive reviews on Steam, with players enjoying its reflection of the board game, but they obviously do not like the occasional bugs the game throws up, and the reviews of the AI players are very mixed. I do enjoy the physical board game. The turns are quick, the game is fun, tight and challenging, and also that action cards are your endgame points is genius. And as good as the digital game looks, there is no way I have the cognitive ability to play Concordia while also watching something on the other monitor.
Number 9.
One advantage of playing board games in the digital space is you don't have to worry about the setup and teardown times of the games. And this is one of those games I never want to finish playing, just because putting it away is a faff. Mystic Vale is a push your luck deck building game where you reveal cards one at a time from your deck and can stop at any time to use the resources revealed to upgrade cards in your deck, using see-through cards slotted into a deck protector. If you push your luck too much, you don't get to spend this turn, which is a waste. Upgrades can award points, and the most points at the end of the game wins. Mystic Vale is rated 7.3 on Board Game Geek, with players liking the gameplay but disliking the randomness and the feeling it's repetitive as the game goes on. The digital version was released in 2019 and is faithful to the card game, and you don't have to de-sleeve all the cards after the game, which is nice. It's rated very positive from 314 reviews on Steam, with players enjoying the game, its art and the animation, but feel it's a bit too random. I do like this game. I've played both the digital and the physical game, and it's fun to play over and over and over and try and score as many points as you can. And it is one of those games you can play fairly mindlessly once you know the cards and you understand the iconography. The physical game is fun, but as I mentioned, the de-sleeve contest at the end is a chore.
Number 8.
Now, this game I once tried to play at a convention, but as I was walking over to the table of the players that were getting it ready, they looked at me, saw me coming, and slowly lowered the players wanted sign. I feel personally hurt. So I haven't played this one physically, but I have played it digitally. In Aeon's End, players are mages using deck building to defeat a game-controlled nemesis. However, there are a few unique mechanisms. Turn order is random, with each player and the nemesis taking turns based on the flip of a card from a deck. Spells are prepped in rotating breaches to be cast on a turn later, and cards are discarded in any order and the discard pile is flipped over rather than shuffled into a new deck. Aeon's End is rated 7.9 on Board Game Geek, with players enjoying the interesting deck building mechanisms, but not the variable turn order, lack of player interaction, or poor rulebook. The digital game was released in 2019 and reflects the card game, but it looks really basic and there is very little graphically to pull you in. But gameplay wise, it's all there. It's very positive from 319 reviews, with players enjoying the challenging, faithful recreation of the card game, but are down on the clunky UI and poor animation. Now, I've enjoyed the game digitally the times I've played it, and I have found it very difficult, which is why I'm glad to see the reviews agreeing with me. It is quite a hard game. I also like the variable turn order. I think there should always be a bit of randomness and chaos in battle. It just feels right. But if I'm going to play a digital deck builder, I prefer Hero Realms, or to be honest, I really miss the now unsupported iOS version of the Penny Arcade deck building game, which I used to play a lot.
Number 7.
Okay, it's going to get a bit awkward now because we're going to look at a game that I've never played physically or digitally, but it is top of my games I want to play list, so there's that. In Spirit Island, game control invaders are spreading across the island, building settlements to fortify the different regions. Players are spirits using elemental powers to repel the invaders and destroy the settlements. Destroy them all to win, but if a spirit is defeated, the board is overrun, or time runs out, the players lose. Spirit Island is rated an impressive 8.4 on BGG, with players enjoying the co-op gameplay and the challenges provided by playing as different spirits against different types of invaders, but are down on the convoluted gameplay and the board that is far from pleasing on the eye. The digital version looks to recreate the tabletop game exactly, with a little bit of animation and more detailed artwork on the different terrain on the island. It has a very positive rating on Steam from 717 reviews of players enjoying the faithful recreation that helps you track tricky game elements, but are not happy about the lack of options to have multiple games on the go or recover from a disconnected online game. This is currently on my Steam wishlist, but reviews are saying the tutorial isn't very good, and also it's rated 4 out of 5 for weight on BoardGameGeek. But looking at it's only made me want to play the physical game more and more, and hopefully 2024 is the year to do that.
Number 6.
With the success of digital deck building games like Monster Train, I'm not surprised at all that half of the games on this list are deck building games. Time for another one. Dominion is said to be the first of these where everyone starts with the same deck. They take actions to play cards to gain more actions and gain resource, which can be used to buy more cards to improve the deck. As the deck is recycled, those better cards are played for better effects, allowing them to buy big point scoring cards to hopefully win the game eventually. Dominion is rated 7.6 on BGG, with players enjoying the classic basic deck building game, but there are many comments about the dry, barely existent theme and the downtime at high player counts. Dominion Digital was released in 2021 and is still in early access and free to play at the time of writing, although the expansions cost extra. It does a good job of recreating the board game using smaller versions of the cards with the picture and the cost to save space on the screen. It is rated very positively from 1085 reviews, with players enjoying the speed of play versus the physical version and that the AI and online PvP works well. This game does play well and is a low effort, minimum brain power game, so it's exactly what I want from a digital card game. But I'm not a fan of these deck building games where you have action points. I like the more free throwing ones where you can just throw your hand on the table, play all the cards and get on with it.
Number 5.
Now, I mentioned that digital board games help with the tedious setup and tear down of some games, but one thing they also do is track the fiddly bits during the game, which is why I like the Small World digital version so much. And here's another game where the digital version does that for you. In Sentinels of the Multiverse, players play as heroes using a pre-built deck of cards working together to help a game-controlled villain that also has their deck of cards fighting in a particular environment, which, as you may now guess, has its own deck of cards. The heroes all play differently, the villains all provide a different challenge, and the environments give you different stuff to deal with as you play. Sentinels of the Multiverse is rated 7.2 on BoardGameGeek, with players enjoying the wide variety of available heroes, villains and environments, but are down on the tracking of damage and those fiddly tokens I alluded to earlier. Sentinels of the Multiverse, the video game, was released in 2014 and does a good job of recreating the card game, keeping the artwork and gameplay while making the game look like you're playing in a comic book. It has a very positive rating on Steam from 1086 reviews, with players enjoying the addictive gameplay but are down on the lack of any kind of campaign or story mode. Now, I've played both versions of this game and I do enjoy it. It was in my top 10 cooperative games for my video last month. As mentioned earlier, having the game handle all the damage and all the buff and debuff tokens and all that stuff, it means I can concentrate on doing something else while playing the game in the background.
Number 4.
Okay, let's look at a deck building game for a change. In Ascension deck building game, players play cards to gain runes, allowing them to purchase heroes or construct cards that go into their deck, power to defeat monsters for honour, and some played cards that reward honour too. When the available honour has been taken, the player with the most is the winner. Ascension is rated 7.0 on BGG, with players enjoying the streamlined gameplay and variability from the expansions, but think it's a little bland with the lack of player interaction. The digital version reflects the card game very well, using cards in the game exactly as they are, with a nice neat layout and clear numbers allowing you to track your resources. It's rated very positively on Steam for 1150 reviews, with players enjoying this simple deck building gameplay, but are down on the developers who seem to be restrictive and uncommunicative with the modding community. This is because players want to up the amount of honour in a game, allowing you to make a game last longer if you want it to, but the developers are not allowing this and are not allowing modders to do this either. Now, I had this on iOS and I played it a few times and it was okay, but as I had mentioned earlier, I did like the iOS Penny Arcade deck building game, so I'd always play that first. Also, one of the designers, Rob Doherty, went on to make Star Realms and Hero Realms, which is a game I prefer more both physically and digitally.
Number 3.
Well, I'll be honest, I am great at maybe 2 or 3 board games. I'm good at some and I'm average at most. But then there's those that I just plain suck at. Root is an asymmetrical game where players play as different factions of woodland creatures, each using their own mechanisms and faction abilities to get cute meeples onto the board, maneuver around the board and score points in a unique way to try and rule the woodland. Root is rated 8.1 on BoardGameGeek, with players enjoying the charming theme, great artwork and asymmetric gameplay, although the time it takes to teach a completely different rule set to each player to a new audience is a bit of a downer. The digital version of Root was released in 2020 and is very faithful to the board game, carrying over the great artwork but adding animation and exceptionally catchy music to bring the game to life. It's rated very positively from 2,898 reviews on Steam, with players high on the artwork and gameplay, and also see it as a great tool to learn the physical version of the game. I've played both and I found learning the game through the digital tutorials very handy when I went on to play the physical game in real life. Although I did struggle when my available options of things I could do weren't suddenly highlighted or have massive arrows pointing at them. And as cute as fun as this game is, I need to give it my full attention every single time, especially when playing as the birds.
Number 2.
Speaking of birds, and I promise I didn't do that on purpose, we have a game all about them. In Wingspan, players are bird watching and will take actions to draw bird cards, gain eggs and bird food, and use those eggs and food to place birds into their player boards for points, as well as some other end of round and endgame scoring. Wingspan is rated a very good 8.1 on BGG, with players enjoying the theme and engine building mechanism that runs the game, but feeling it as very much multiplayer solitaire. Wingspan Digital looks great with nice animation, including the birds on the cards, which is very cute. It also has really nice and relaxing music, as well as bird sound, which I can only assume are bird appropriate, but I'm not sure about that. It's rated very positively on Steam from a whopping 6,686 reviews, with players enjoying the relaxed, chill theme and music, but very down on the poor public online multiplayer. Now, I don't mind this game, but it's in that category with other games like Terraforming Mars and Art Nova, where people seem to want to play them all the time, and I don't like them anywhere near enough to do that. But this digital version looks really good. I'm going to add it to my wish list and maybe pick it up in a sale. I'm sure after a game or two I'll get the hang of it and I'll be able to divide my attention between the game and other stuff while I'm playing.
And now, number 1.
Number 1 is the newest game on this list. It's still in early access, and guess what? It's a deck building game. Hashtag Dune Imperium is a deck building game. In Dune Imperium, players play cards to take actions for resources that can be used to take more advanced actions, add units into a battle and climb up tracks. Unplayed cards are then revealed and are then used to up the combat value and of course buy new cards. It's a deck building game after all. Each round, the player with the largest combat value will win a battle, which is often worth a victory point. Moving up on those tracks is worth victory points, and some really expensive cards give points too. Get to the target amount, about 10 or so, to win. Dune Imperium is also the highest rated game on BGG with an 8.4, with players enjoying the mechanisms, tight gameplay and scoring and interaction on the board. Detractors are down on the dull theme, long game time, clunky gameplay and drab art and components. This so-called drab artwork is copied over into the digital version in what looks like a faithful recreation of the board exactly as it sits on the table. The digital version is rated overwhelmingly positive from 723 reviews, with players very happy at this spot-on recreation of the tabletop game, although they say that AI players are a bit easy. Now, I've played this a few times physically, so if I'm playing the digital version I won't have to focus too much on the game. I can be doing other stuff, and if the AI is as bad as people say, I might even win a few games. It's the game I've played the most and most recently compared to the others on this list, and I can say the game makes sense just looking at the screenshots. And I've played this game various times, including with all the different expansions, but I've seen enough now. But clearly, being on the tabletop or the desktop, this is an incredibly popular game, so if you haven't played it, then definitely give it a go. That's the list. What do you think? Let me know in the comments for your favourite board game on Steam so I can take a look. And if you like digital board games, check out my list of the top 10 video games that use board game mechanisms. Remember to like, share, subscribe and all that good stuff. It really does help the channel. There's also my Patreon if you want to. For $1 or £1 a month, you can really help out this channel. And yeah, I hope you enjoy your board games on Steam. Let me know what your favourites are, and I'll see you soon.